Hey, so we want to look at Linde. This is a stock that came up when I was doing an index review of XLB, a materials sector. I felt like that sector was in a very good spot, clearly in an uptrend in the moment, and Linde was one of the companies within that. So I thought it makes sense that I should, you know, work on that one because it had the highest proportion in that index. So if I wanted to potentially increase my earnings by focusing on an individual stock as opposed to the index, which could get weighed down by some of the other components within it, that's kind of the thinking of why I wanted to add Linde to my stock portfolio slash just stocks that I'm interested in following over the next year, maybe longer. So if you have any insights on Linde, want to share it in the comments, or have any opinions on a good price point for this one that maybe differs from what I come up with towards the end of the video, again, let me know in the comments, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. So let's just kind of look into this one. So we're looking at the initial 3 years right now, and we'll just start off like we've done with all the other kind of stocks that we've done, and even the indexes. And we'll just draw out a couple lines here. The first couple lines that we're drawing are what are noticeably the kind of new low point in the stock and the ultimate high point. And so I could draw it back down here in 2020, but I just don't want to include that. And that's why I'm choosing this $263 mark drawn out here, because it clearly was on an uptrend for a while. It tested it a couple times, so that seems to be the new low for this stock. And so that's really just the rationale behind that. If we were to draw in another line, it looks like um, hmm, we have some down here. This might be like my buy point if it can come to this point. And I say that just because, again, it seems like it's on an uptrend, but it is kind of wavering, especially in the past year to year and a half. If I were to pick like a sell point, this seems to be the clear line right here, just because it's hit that mark, bounced down, came very close again, bounced down, got rejected, tested it a third time, didn't drop as far, and now all of a sudden, just over the past 2 weeks, it actually exceeded that sell point. But then the following week, which was just this past week, it came right back down to that sell point. So that seems to be the mark in terms of sell point. But honestly, again, because this one's trending in an upward fashion, and we'll get to that in just a minute, and I'll show you exactly what I'm seeing in terms of the uptrend, because when we look at this 3 year chart, it might seem like it's not so much in an uptrend anymore, because it seems to have hit its limit at about 341, and now it's kind of just trading sideways for a little bit. But now all of a sudden, maybe it's going to continue on in that uptrend. But we'll add in some trend lines here. Right after I add in my fifth line, which is what I like to call the fair value line. And this is just like an intermediary mark that seems to have either support or resistance, or maybe a combination of both. Um, this mark, I feel like I could draw it in like here, because there clearly was resistance back in September of 21, and then again in about August of 22. I could also argue it acted as a support line in about December of 21. I realize it broke slightly in May of 22, but popped right back up and then ultimately did break just a month or two later. And then most recently in January, I know the bar doesn't go as low as our fair value mark at 309, but uh, if you can see in the tail, it actually does exceed that 309 mark. So uh, I could draw this in a little bit up or down, but that seems to be just another point of interest for us. And so that seems to be like an overall decent mark. And so I'm just going to update the spreadsheet off on the side while we kind of digest this information for a minute. So we have, what's this mark at? Like 341. So 341 by 280, and the current price is 341. So my initial thought would be, now's like a good time to sell, because we would imagine this one's going to pull back to at least 309, and that's a decent margin, $40 per share. And then ultimately, what we would really like is it to pull all the way back down to 280 or maybe a 263. But now let's just back it up to a monthly chart. And by doing that, that expands this, because we really were just tracking to about this point here, right around, if you can see on the bottom, that's about 2020. So about this mark, and I can even draw in just a line. I won't keep it, but this was kind of, whoops, right around here. So that was kind of like where we were looking at initially, just this part. And you can clearly see the uptrend here when we back it out into a monthly basis, because it's condensing all those fluctuations on a weekly basis and just rounds it into one massive gain. So in the weekly chart, we might have seen, we'll take this one for example, where there might have been a couple negative weeks in there that kind of like showed fluctuations, but the overall increase led to that result. And so I have no idea what was going on back here in 2013 to 14. It's very interesting. I'd be curious to know if anyone has insights on that. If I do have time, I'll probably look into it, just because it's so unique in the candle formation. But anyway, let's just go into the trend line. So what we're seeing, if we just kind of mark out this point, and I'm trying to capture most of the bottoms, it's kind of difficult. I think what we'll do, I've done this before, where we just add in like a polyline, where we can clearly see it's uptrending here, and that hits most of the bottoms, and then all of a sudden it climbs up a little more rapidly. And if we kind of mark that out like this, and I'm going to extend it out a couple more weeks, that seems to be like the uptrend. And we'll do the same. Let me first make this line a different color, just so we're all on the same page. So it's a purple line here, and then we'll do a very similar process, try to capture as much of the tops as we can. And so it seems like it hits there, and then all of a sudden it shoots off to like there-ish, and I'm gonna try to extend it out a few weeks just so we can kind of gauge it. Okay, so that seems to be the trend line. And of course there are some moments where it goes below or above, and then if we kind of, let's just zoom right back in to where we were before. So it seems like it's still in the middle of that trend line. And so going into next week, what I'd be looking for, considering the trend line, would be about 331, would be like the very bottom of the trend line, assuming it's still going upwards. That's not great, because again, we marked out previously our fair value mark and our buy point, so it's not really hitting that in any real way. So for this one, I'd probably just hang out and wait on this one for a little bit, see what it does over the next couple weeks. If it does continue, especially with this red candle in here, very deep red candle, if we continue to see another week or two where it does trend down, then perfect. That works out great because we're going to get this one at some good points. And if not, if it keeps trending upwards, well, we will note that and find a different time to purchase this one. But overall, it's just in the more recent time. So from like about a year and a half, going back to like November, October of 21, it does seem to be trading sideways now. And I'm putting more emphasis on that, even with the purple trend lines in there. Trying to think if I want to add anything more to this in the moment. Um, yeah, I guess that's all I can really add at this point. Uh, the first time I would consider buying this, especially because who knows when I'll actually circle back to this, maybe in a couple weeks, maybe in a month, but we'll come back to this, and if we see it closer to like 309, that would be great. That'd be a great point for me to buy, but again, maybe that would be showing that it's in a downward trend. Um, we'll circle back on this one. I mean, if we stick to this, you know, based on the format, this would be an ideal time to sell or short this stock and see it come back. But the only reason I'm going to not do that is because again, we're still in this trend line, even though it's gone above and below in the recent year or two. It's still locked in the overall uptrend of this stock. So that that just kind of gives us something to think about. And just some background, because I don't know if this is new to you, but so Linde, they are a leading global industrial gases and engineering company. So right off the bat, I'm not sure if that's something we should be worried about in terms of maybe it's growing so much because you know the Exxon Mobil and that type of those types of stocks are growing so much, like the energy sector is growing so much, and they're benefiting from that. And so, if the energy sector all of a sudden starts trending downward, how much is that going to impact Linde? And maybe at some point we'll pull up a side by side and look at it. I don't know if I can do that here real quick. Let's see, compare. Let's do Exxon Mobil. Um, how's this working out here? Okay, so it looks like the blue line, it's really faint. I don't know if I can make that better or not for us. Um, settings. Hmm. I'll have to look into it, but hopefully you can see it on your screen that there's this blue line, and it doesn't seem to correlate that much. I mean, because starting at 2020, I mean, that's like a perfect spot because everyone crashed. And so it rose up. They both rose up at the same time. But then Exxon started dropping while Linde kept going up. And then this one up, Exxon went up rapidly when Linde just kind of continued on its upward trend, upward trend. Exxon probably moved up a lot more rapidly than Linde. It comes down, kind of similar. Continued going up while Exxon was going down. Exxon goes up, and then here's like a rapid climb. And during Exxon's rapid climb here in like late 21, early 22, Linde actually starts dropping. And then here climbs up, Exxon, it drops. That's something. It does seem to trace it in the more recent periods, though. That's interesting. It definitely is. Let's go back to a monthly chart just to see how this kind of compares. I don't think there's as much relation as I think. There's definitely a component of it, but at least prior to 2020, there's not really a relation. I mean, Exxon was very flat. I don't know if that's a dividend thing. I Does Linde give dividends? That's something. Linde. Let's go to Yahoo. Let's see, Linde. Linde does give dividends, so that's kind of off the table. I'm not sure when they started or if it even tells us. It doesn't really tell us when they started, so we'll just assume they've always been that way. And so Linde was able to continue growing while Exxon just was flat. And then most recently, there does seem to be a trend, or at least a similar pattern. And that might just be a coincidence since, like, the fourth, the fourth week of, or the third or fourth month of 22, it does seem to kind of follow a trend, but that really might just be a coincidence. So, something to think about. Let me know what your thoughts are. I feel like it's too soon. I'd like to follow this one a little bit more over the next month or two before making a purchase. But if we pull up our tracker on the side, this is, at least based on the trend lines and the kind of price points of the technical analysis, this looks like it would be a sell point. The argue is that it is in an uptrend. So it really just depends on your knowledge on this. Because I don't know enough and this is so new to me, I'm not gonna do anything. I guess what we'll do is, this isn't one of our colors, but we'll just add in a new color. We'll add in something like a light red, and that's kind of want to make it lighter. Let's just make it pink just to make it easy, because I know I don't have that color. We'll add like a pink. So pink is like, I just need to know more about it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the initial kind of reaction to this stock. We'll continue to track it over the next couple weeks and probably months, and see if we can find a good price point that I feel comfortable with, and we'll just take it from there. So I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.